Wendy, thank you so much for calling in. We've been following this since about 1:15 this afternoon. So surprised at how fast all of this unveiled. I mean, it just went from like 18 people to 30 to 35 to 40, and now 60 people confirmed dead and 100 hostages.
That's right. You know, one of the things that really characterizes this as really a terrorist attack is you notice the way that the resources are being diverted. In other words, there's a finite number of law enforcement professionals devoted to any particular area. The scariest thing about an attack like this is when you have these simultaneous attacks, that finite resource is forced to scatter to several different locations simultaneously, which is so dangerous for the community. And you also note that this is where the president was actually at one of the events near where one of the explosions occurred. So you really got sort of a perfect storm of circumstances that really speaks to a level of sophistication and organization. I wouldn't be surprised if that turns out to be exactly the kind of coordinated attack we're looking at here.
Okay, a couple of minutes ago, we were talking to one of your colleagues, USC Professor Edwin Smith. He mentioned that, France, like a lot of countries in Europe right now, are taking in a lot of refugees. You are a threat assessment expert. So talk about how big a threat and how easy it is for the wrong people to get in with these innocent refugees.
Well, that's exactly what we're worried about is, there's obviously insufficient resources available to vet every refugee that you take. That's something that everybody is worried about when you talk about taking in a mass number of people simultaneously. How do you know whether or not everybody is innocent? And most of them are. But when you get attacks like this occurring, obviously it's going back onto our radar. From a threat assessment perspective, what kinds of measures can you take as a practical matter? We all would like to say we'll do a background check on everybody. Nobody can do that. As a practical matter, how much can you do? And the answer is as much as you can, given the time-sensitive nature of these types of refugee scenarios, where many countries are taking as many as they can. It really is a no-win situation, but I don't think anybody believed it would escalate to something like this.
Yeah, and then also in our city, it's so large, we're definitely a target as well. That's the scary part.
That's another thing, too. It may not be politically correct to say this, but this country also bringing in refugees. How big a threat are you concerned about what may happen here because of that?
Yeah, you bet. That's a very valid point that everybody's concerned about, and already some of our larger cities are taking precautions. This instance of soft target attacks, I mean, there isn't a big city in our nation that isn't a soft target. What really scared us about this terrorist attack, and as continues to unfold, is that it was a series of soft targets in close proximity. And when you've got something like that, necessarily, again, the resource allocation, it is such a threat to public safety. Now, obviously, all of the law enforcement agencies, they are well prepared to encounter something like this. But there's only so many people that can go to so many scenes. One of the things we always encourage folks to do after tragedies like this is it's another opportunity with us and our own families to talk about what would you do. In other words, it is never too late to have a plan of action and discuss it frequently with your own family. What would you do if you were at a restaurant? Make sure you know where the exits are as soon as you walk in. And I know parents are worried about scaring their children, but it's better than the alternative in not having a pre-planned avenue of escape. God forbid should we find ourselves in the middle of something like this unfolding in our own cities.
Wendy, Patrick, thank you so much for that advice and also the insight.